Okay, so I am a huge fan of Avatar The Last Airbender and its subsequent show, The Legend of Korra. Both shows are incredibly entertaining, well voice acted and superbly animated, and I recommend everyone watching this video to check them out if you haven't already. Do not let the fact that these are Nickelodeon shows put you off, as they're both up there with the best TV has to offer. I am dead serious. Now of course, the shows centre around a character who goes by the title of Avatar, the only person in the world who can master and bend the four elements of fire, air, earth and water to their will. And right there is a great concept for a video game, and apparently Platinum Games thought the same thing, as when approached by Activision to develop a video game based on the Legend of Korra TV show, their initial reaction was,
yes.
And my hopes were high for this game. For those not in the know, Platinum Games are a well-established and talented studio working on games like Bayonetta, Mad World and Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, and being published by Activision gave me hopes that Platinum Games would have all the necessary resources they would need to create a fantastic, faithful and all-round fun video game for fans of the show. Now in 2014 we already had a fantastic TV show to video game adaptation in the form of South Park: The Stick of Truth. Take a talented video game developer with the help and support of the creators of the show, and you've got interactive gold. So with The Legend of Korra, we got a talented video game developer with the help and support of... I don't think the show's creators gave too much of a shit about this game, if I'm being honest.
Terrible. Even Pabu could have done a better job.
Okay, to begin, let's talk about the story elements of the game, and let's get the good out of the way first. The animation. Now the show's animation is handled by Studio Mir, and here it's done by... Okay, I swear I'm not making this name up. Titmouse Incorporated.
I can't even say the word titmouse without giggling like a schoolgirl.
But it's okay, they're a talented studio. They animated Linkin Park's Breaking the Habit after all, which is one of the greatest music videos of all time in my opinion. And whilst the animation in this game isn't quite up there with the quality of the shows, it's faithful enough for me not to mind. So animation wise, the game is fine. Story wise however, wow was that an afterthought here. The game takes place between seasons 2 and 3 of the show and sees Korra running into this evil old guy who takes away bending, and Korra has to stop him whilst getting her bending back. That is it. The story is there purely to keep the game moving forward. There is zero character development, the villain's motivations are incredibly unclear, and the entertaining interactions between characters that the show is known for is nowhere to be found. The only characters that appear in the game are Korra, Naga, Jinora, Iroh, Marco and Bolin. And Marco and Bolin are only in it for like 30 seconds, and all you get of Iroh is a still image at an inventory screen. So yes, that means there's no Tenzin, no Bumi, no Kia, no Beifong, no Asami, no Desna Nesca, no Milo, no Iki, no Tarlok, and no Varric.
Mind-blowing, right?
And it's here I realised that the game didn't have anywhere near the backing from the show's creators that South Park: The Stick of Truth had. Which is why I should mention something about this game that not many other reviewers have actually, and this is very important. Despite being developed by Platinum, The Legend of Korra is a budget titled game. On Steam this is selling for £12, and in the States it's selling even less at $15. It's dirt cheap. So naturally a game that sells for that little cannot hope to have a compelling narrative akin to the show it's trying to imitate. I suspect Platinum were focusing more of their resources on Bayonetta 2, and the Legend of Korra game was given such a small budget that they couldn't afford many of the show's writers, animators and voice actors to give us something that matches the show on a narrative level. The Stick of Truth was great because it emulated not only the look and feel of South Park, but also the comedy and writing of it. The game was packed to the brim with cutscenes, funny character interactions and some of the best fan service ever seen in a video game. The Legend of Korra looks the part, yes, it just doesn't have nearly the same amount of passion put into it. And this is quite apparent in the game's environments because whilst Korra's animations are very well done, the stages are incredibly drab and, well, empty. There's no pedestrians or any kind of non-enemy NPCs. For those wanting a Legend of Korra game which fully realises the beauty and scope of the show's world, will be incredibly disappointed. Now the story should be very important in a Legend of Korra video game, hence that's why I've talked about it so much, but then again this is a video game. How's the actual gameplay? Well, the Legend of Korra takes the form of a third-person beat-em-up. You know, like every Platinum game ever made pretty much, as you use a light and heavy attack to lay waste to your enemies. At the start of the game, it pulls a sort of Castlevania Symphony of the Night thing on you, and as you fight enemies with all your powers, and then takes them all away. I gotta say, the intro to this game isn't very good, it just sort of starts. Like, here you go, fight. It's a bit jarring. But anyway, the game then properly begins, and at first you just use your fists, but as the story progresses you unlock the 4 elements of water, earth, fire and air, which give you attacks and elemental edge, and with a quick hit of the shoulder buttons you can switch between the 4 on the fly. And I liked how each element wasn't just a palette swap because they all came in handy in certain situations. Water is best for long range attacks, earth is more powerful but short range, fire is best for combos, and air is best for clearing large groups of enemies. And overall the game's mechanics are fun to use, but there's serious problems with it that make the game incredibly frustrating at times. First of all, whilst attacking enemies with the elements has a nice weight to it and can be quite fun to pull off, defending is pretty much broken, most notably with the counter system. By pressing the left bumper on your controller just before you get hit, a short button prompt will appear which you can use to counter an enemy's attacks. But the window in which you can press this counter button is incredibly short. When I think of good combat systems in games, I think of the Batman Arkham series. The combat in that game is very fluid and your attacks look properly choreographed as though you're watching a fight scene from a real Batman movie. When an enemy attacks you in that game, you have a reasonable amount of time to hit a button to counter because of a little icon that appears over the enemy's head. The Legend of Korra video game, however, just doesn't have that, bar the enemy flashing red for a millisecond, but that only signifies an attack. This isn't when you're supposed to counter. You're actually supposed to hit the counter button after that and just before you get hit, but in the heat of battle this can be very difficult. Far too many enemies appear on screen at times, and I swear some of these attacks just feel impossible to dodge. Because a lot of enemies' attacks are ranged, you'll often get hit from off-screen projectiles, and this can just get maddening because you literally cannot see them coming. The game does get a little more manageable as more elemental powers are unlocked, but there's many a time where I swore I pressed the counter button at the right time, but the game said otherwise. I died a lot in this game, but thankfully the checkpoints are quite lenient and Iroh Shop is always there to help you restock and health restoration items if you need them. It's a bit annoying that every time that you die you have to repurchase and then re-equip these items, but it's not a big deal. The second problem with the gameplay though is enemy variety. There's very little of it. For the most part you'll be facing equally soldiers, and later on in the game you'll face off against evil spirits. In terms of normal non-boss enemies, that is it. And the game's story doesn't even give a reason why these guys are attacking you. Well, okay, this one dude says the evil old guy had a lot of money, but to be able to buy this many equally soldiers and tanks, I mean, who the fuck is this guy? And how does he have so much money? And yeah, the game never explains this. So after the regular schmoes, you got the boss fights, and the game has a total of 4, but unfortunately 3 of them are repeated several times. First of the boss fights are a trio of expert benders, 1 fire, 1 water and 1 earth, and these guys appear numerous times throughout the campaign. And yes, we don't know their names or motivations or anything, they just appear. And by the 3rd time they show up, I was exclaiming out loud, "Not these guys again!" It was actually only post-game I realised that these guys made a brief appearance in the 1st episode of The Legend of Korra as a trio of triads hustling up protection money. No problem with that of course, but if you're going to go out of your way to include characters from the show, it'd be nice to give them some sort of identity so we can, you know, remember them. Now the second type of boss fights are mecha tanks, and facing these things get old fast. The problem with these guys is that they have a ridiculous amount of health and don't really require much thought to take down. Wail on them with water bending, and when they charge at you, counter the attack and follow the button prompt. Repeat for about 10 minutes and you win. Seriously, whenever I saw one of these things in the distance, I just groaned because I knew I had to fight it again. Dear video game developers, never recycle boss fights. Ever. Devil May Cry 4 did that, and that was easily the worst thing about that otherwise great game. But at least with that game you played as a different character when you refought the boss. Here, there's actually some stages where you have to fight these things twice. It's some of the laziest game design I've seen in a long time. And lastly, there's these giant spirit enemies, and this is where the game hits its lowest point. These things are horrible. When you face one, you're put into a tiny ass arena, and they just dumped all over you. You're given no room to maneuver, and they bloody block the camera. So all you can do here is hit them with your bending as fast as you can and hope for the best. Seriously, look at this footage. I can't believe this passed game testing. And to add insult to injury, you know what they do for their next boss fight? Have you fight two of them at the same time. This is ridiculous. Now thankfully there is an item that Iroh sells at its shop which continuously recovers your energy over time. This is something you will need. Admittedly, this item is actually kinda overpowered and makes the game a breeze, but with game designers piss poor as this, I'm willing to make an exception. But again, as more of Korra's bending powers become unlocked, the game does get better. And there is more fun to be had when you replay the game for a second time because of how more powerful you are. The game becomes piss easy at this point, but it does at least feel good to string together big combos and kick some ass akin to how Korra does in the show. But to give the game a bit more variety, Platinum decided to create some levels where you can actually ride Korra's pet polar bear Naga throughout various stages. Well, alright, that sounds like fun. How are these then? They're, a temple run clone, aren't they?
Oh, man.
Yeah, these stages are basically a rip-off of those endless runners you get on iOS and Android. And, well, they're not terrible. They do offer a nice deviation from the main game, and the bending element is used effectively here to make the stages feel unique enough. I just would have preferred something with a bit more control. A stage akin more to something like Okami or Twilight Princess, not Temple Run. Again, this is a low-budget game, so I guess I shouldn't complain, but still. And lastly, there is a Probending minigame, which is reasonably fun. It's here the counter system actually works a bit better, but the mode overall is severely limited. You can't change venue or even who you play as. Marco and Berlin fight alongside you, but you always control the water-bending Korra. There's also another big missed opportunity. Why doesn't the Probending minigame have multiplayer? I mean, I'm not asking for an online mode, but a simple split screen option would have been nice. Would that really have been so hard to program? So all in all, my opinions on this game are very mixed. The story is an afterthought, combat can get incredibly frustrating, enemy variety is a joke, the level design is bland, and the main campaign only took me 3.5 hours to beat. But on the other hand, the bending itself is fun to pull off, the animation is decent, and considering this is only £12 on Steam, means I can't hate on this game too much. If this was a game going for full retail price, I'd be giving it a 4 out of 10. But because it's a budget title game, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt and give it a 5. And just to let you know, my rating system is akin to Angry Joe's in that 5 is average. The game has a shit ton of problems, but it has its moments. I was actually thinking prior to this game's release that it was going to be a AAA title because it was being handled by a AAA developer, but unfortunately it would seem Bayonetta 2 was Platinum's priority. The Legend of Korra video game is something I would only recommend to those curious about the project. Go into this knowing it's a low budget and very flawed title, and you'll likely get some fun out of it. I mean, we can all dream of our ideal Avatar Universe video game. My idea is that such a game would take place after the events of The Legend of Korra, and you play as the next Avatar. And you'd be able to customize him or her to your liking, and the game would take the form of a free-roaming action RPG, where you can explore the world and form your own destiny. Like Skyrim actually, but instead of the Dova King, you'd be the Avatar. You could walk the streets of Ba Sing Se, ride your own personal animal of choice around Republic City, take on bandits harassing villages in the Earth Kingdom, speak with fun and recognizable characters in fully voiced and well animated cutscenes, ride an airship up to the city of Zaofu, compete in airbending races at the Northern Air Temple, take part in underground bending tournaments for extra cash, visit various bending masters around the world to hone your bending skills. There is so much potential here. If the right developer was given the project and they had all the necessary funding and support of the show's creators to create the game, I would be the first in line to buy it. Seriously, the license is too good to waste. The world needs an amazing Avatar Universe video game. Unfortunately, 2014's The Legend of Korra is, not it.